All right, welcome back to round number 2 of 4 here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon. We're Portland Paper. I'm Travis Cooper, hanging out with director, producer. What's another superlative you'd like, Ian? God, man, it's been a
Talker.
The talker?
Yeah.
Commentator extraordinaire. And yeah, hanging out, watching Zeke, that we only got to catch the very end of their game in round number 1 on 4-color control, playing against Nick on, I think we're on an Amulet Titan list here. Players, the round started a little bit early and did get a chance to conference with the players, but oh, that's a Karoo land. We got an Arboreal Grazer. I'd be
feels
surprised
very
if it wasn't.
Titan-y
Yeah.
to me.
What do you think about this matchup?
I think this is definitely a skill matchup. I think Nick has a slow start, which can be a little bit dangerous in the matchup. Solitude is a house against what Nick has going on. Depending on whether Zeke is actually playing any straight-up counter spells, any straight-up counter magic, that can make the matchup much more difficult, especially if you're playing a Titan list that's not playing a ton of main deck copies of Cavern of Souls. One of the better ways to win this matchup is to just have a quick hand and just get in there and hope that Zeke does not have the Solitude. I like the matchup post-board when you're able to play things like Tireless Tracker, as I think that there are ways that the Amulet Titan deck can outvalue the opponent.
I agree with you. I think game 1, unless you have one of those insane quick like double Amulet hands, I am in favor of 4-color control. Zeke is playing the 4 counter spell package, which sometimes is really good against Titan, but sometimes absolutely does nothing when there's a Cavern of Souls out. But with the combo of like Solitude plus like Leyline Binding, maybe
that is very aggressive from Zeke. Yeah, I'm really surprised to see Solitude fired off, especially given that Hardcast Titan mana is available next turn, kind of with or without the Azusa.
And also, like, if you cared about the Azusa that much, you could have actually used Ending on it or counterspelled it. So yeah, very kind of curious play to me there.
Interesting.
I'm sure there was a reason. Don't know what it was though.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the Wrenn. So, but Zeke, I mean, we're relatively low on resources on Zeke's side after pitching. Looks like we've just got 2 lands and a counterspell. Nick's hand is good if we can resolve a Titan. We will not be able to here, or draw a Vesuva, as I think there are 2 Dadbod Dryads in hand. Chat, what do y'all think about this matchup? Any 4-color control Amulet Titan stands? Who's played this matchup?
And I'm still a little bit just shocked that we exiled the ending for the Solitude, but that's where we are right now, because we're kind of like left with really nothing at this point.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Elishnorn is a house. I have to imagine that most 4-color lists are playing at least 1 copy. Okay, Nick is going to put Zeke to the test again here.
And it does resolve.
And I have to imagine that we're going to see at least 1 Valakut here with the 2 Dryad of the Legion Groves in hand.
It's always fun to see what, like, it's sort of like a test to, like, how experienced is an Amulet player and what are they, like, how do they think they're doing in the game? Like, do they feel like they're ahead? Do they feel like
what do they think the opponent's up to? I would expect to see 1 Valakut, and then I would expect to see a bounce land if we don't have another one in hand, just so we can kind of keep triggering the Valakut. But it looks like Nick feels like applying pressure with Saga Token is going to be the better option. Or we already have an additional bounce land in hand.
Which I like the Saga Token plan at this point because you're kind of just taxing Zeke's removal. and you know, whatever, your Titan might get exiled, but you have potentially like 4 Saga tokens on the board right now, and Zeke's deck isn't one that is going to combo kill you. Yeah, may have initially been afraid of something like creativity, but once you've seen the Ice Fang, you know that's not happening. So yeah, just grinding seems, value out of your land seems like where you want to be.
Certainly. Fury picked up off the top. So Zeke still, I mean, Fury is kind of the only card in hand that does anything here. We could have done down tick. We could have seen down tick Ren and 6, play Ren and 6, down tick on the Titan, then play Fury to pick off the Titan. Whether or not that's a winning line, I don't know. I wouldn't have minded seeing that line from Zeke.
Yeah, at least you would have had a Ren for another turn as well, because there's nothing that Nick was putting into play, and we didn't get any kind of like hasty lands. So yeah, I like what you're thinking there.
So we're just gonna get a pass here. Man, it feels like the pass is kind of just conceding. You leave a Titan player with a bunch of mana and a Titan on board and a pass. I have to imagine that we just see Nick clean up on this turn.
I think, yeah, this is going to be your dead, pretty much, because depending on how many Valakuts are in the deck, there's also an Arboreal Grazer in hand as well.
Okay, so Nick did have a Karoo in hand, which is very good.
Second Ren and 6 and Fury. At 7 mana.
Zeke's talking about not seeing the line of the second Ren and 6 until a little bit too late there.
Yeah, it's always a bummer when your brain just picks it up. You know, you're kind of like in that moment, and you know the clock's ticking. So
because I feel like there is, like, I definitely do this in decks I play that are pretty permanent heavy with Planeswalkers, of making sure you're not like forgetting to uptick your Teferi or forgetting to uptick something that's not going to actually do much to affect the game, but you want to like work towards that ultimate or build loyalty. So just to automatically be like, oh, I am supposed to uptick this, and then not have thought about the line of like, oh shit.
Yeah, the down tick.
That 1 damage matters. Yeah.
I don't think there's any penalty for that. No, I don't think so.
I don't know what Nick is after here.
All right, what are we looking at for
I think
Zeke
if you've
here?
already finished the game, a regular RL is just like nothing.
Vela Summers are not doing much.
Card should have been in my main deck. So there's 59 cards.
Okay, and you drew?
No, this
He just beat me in the first game.
So we played
Oh, okay. Here's what's happening is
Don't we just
Nick
keep
is
playing?
realizing that 1 card was like left in the deck box. So he had like a 59 card deck instead of a 60 card deck. And when he went to sideboard, realized that and is asking a judge.
Yeah.
And because this is not a decklist tournament, we're running it off companion app. We're at regular REL, so basically how that works is you figure out a solution that feels good to both players.
Yeah.
And I sort of love that. Like that change happened a couple of years ago, where I feel like it gives a lot of agency to LGSs and people running the tournament to like kind of have like a stress-free event where basically you just as a judge or as the TL sort of just like figure out a situation that feels cool to everybody, and if someone's being a jerk, you can be like, don't be a jerk. But there's no like, oh, you should have been disqualified, or you should get a like game warning. And yeah, basically you either try to rectify what the board state is or can get disqualified, but in between those two things, good vibes.
Absolutely. Well, Elder Drunken Highlander, welcome, and welcome you with your raiding party of 7. Thank you for the raid. For the 7 of you that are joining us, we are Portland Paper. We are in round 2 of 4 in Modern Mondays at Guardian Games. We stream all paper on Mondays. We have a song that says so.
It's true. And let's just bump over here to our backup match and see what we have to look forward to. Oh,
Rhinos,
wow. We got some cool rhinos.
and some mono black control.
Oh, that looks
Some
fun.
Karn action.
Yeah, I like a Cabal Coffers. Interesting. Well, if we finish up this feature match, we'll get to see hopefully what's going on over there. I'm curious what I haven't checked out the Cabal Coffers deck in maybe like 6 months or something. I'm wondering what if the current iteration has any interesting new tech to it.
Nothing like super surprising, I think yeah. It's a cool deck. It looks like it's a fun deck for the mono black control stands. Is what I'll say about it.
I don't know. I've been crushed by that deck before playing Murktide, where I felt like I couldn't lose, and spoiler alert, I did lose.
Round 1, we had Enzo on 4-color Grinding Breach playing against... Oh God, help me, Trav. Enzo against Creativity. Against 5-color Creativity, Enzo got smashed. Some tough draws, kind of flooded game 1, and I think the Creativity player just had pretty good interaction for what Enzo was doing game 2.
Yeah, kind of just, I think the Creativity won off Fables pretty much.
Yeah, Fable was very good, unsurprisingly.
All right, and so sideboard-wise, didn't really get a chance to check out what the judge
It was
called.
not Joseph, it was Alex.
What Amulet cited in. I imagine, you saw some counter spells. You might be citing in your caverns.
Yeah, if you have,
those live
for
on the
sure.
sideboard.
Yes, absolutely. You're not going to worry too much about Blood Moons, so I feel like you can side out some number of basics potentially. If you're playing 4 basics, you don't really care about your lands that gain life, so if you're playing Radiant Fountain, you can get rid of that. You're somewhat indifferent on Bajuka Bog. You could get rid of that.
Postages might come in if there's any in the sideboard as well.
Yeah, to get rid of Leyline Bindings. Yep. If you are worried about Elish Norn and you have any answers to that, you can think about bringing those in. If you want to maybe go on the grinding plan. It looks like Tireless Tracker is in Nick's hands, so we definitely brought in some number of Tireless Trackers, is my guess.
And I think debating on if you want to play the tracker this turn and not have it generate a clue token, or if you're going to wait a turn.
I think you got to wait. Yeah, especially post-war. Zeke's got a grip of cards. I feel like it's pretty greedy to go for the tracker without a land drop.
It looks like there's tracker and Dryad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm Nick, I'm okay with playing this a little bit slower. I mean, like I said last game, I think your value plan is very, very strong. And if your first threat is a must answer, like a tracker, and you can also recoup the value with 1 or 2 clues, I think you're feeling pretty good about the matchup. On Zeke's side, not hitting the early Renin 6 is a bit of a bummer. I mean, we're still hitting land drops, and it looks like there is an Elish Norn in hand, which, of course, as we talked about, is a absolute house in the matchup. But, Norn is actually not that amazing against Tireless Tracker. Wow, and the second Amulet does draw the counter spell. So are we going to see the tracker here? Very interesting that we saw the Amulet countered there, given that, with the Mycosynth Gardens out there, Nick can already copy the other copy of Amulet. I'm kind of more for using Counterspell on the... if you're in a situation like this where Nick has kind of an abundant amount of enablers... Yeah, maybe Zeke can't beat... But can you beat 2 Amulets? The difference between 2 and 3 Amulets, I guess, it's more mana. But I'm almost wanting to go for countering the payoffs rather than the enablers at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you, but there is a lot of Amulet players will kind of sandbag the Cavern until they actually are going to be playing it to cast either a Dryad or to cast your Titan. So there is some value in just countering a thing.
Yeah,
but
just to keep on curve.
I think I'm kind of in your boat with if I have one counter spell, sort of saving it for the payoff.
Although if, you know, with the way that Zeke has played this, wanting to tap out for Omnath, I think maybe the thought from Zeke's side is we just need to slow Nick down, and then once we land Elishnorn, like that'll ice the game. So maybe that's the idea, that we just need to slow Nick down long enough to land the Elishnorn. In which case, Zeke's play actually makes a lot of sense.
Untap twice. Generate 4.
We still are in a lot of. I mean, if Titan comes down here, this is potentially just the game. Okay, it's Tracker. That is what you want to see. Even though Tracker doesn't feel good if you're on Zeke's side, but without a Solitude, I think Titan was just game here.
You bounced your position.
Oh, perfect. And then, so
Nick has another.
Sleeve white. Floating. No. Have to use the white. Okay. We'll use all
So
four.
on
and
this board, it
blue.
just kills one thing.
Then
oh fuck yeah. Because it was
yeah.
yeah. Ouch.
And actually, I'm not going to switch it. So I'm going to pass the turn.
All right. Well, that's kind of like my whole drop a turn.
Good.
No trigger. Yeah. Still. Is bouncing a trigger?
The bounce lands?
Yeah.
I think they still enter the battlefield tap, but yeah, that's enters the battlefield trigger, right? If a permanent entering the battlefield with powers and ability to trigger. Don't cut. Yeah. So
This doesn't get a song counter reaction either, right?
that's not a trigger.
Okay.
Yeah, that's as it enters the battlefield.
Are you ready? Cool. That's both my land drops.
Good.
All right, we're back here. Ethan's checking. I think we may have had someone trip over
Oh,
an
man.
Ethernet cable there, which was kind of inopportune. But we had Zeke able to resolve an Elishnorn, which is puts a kibosh on a lot of what Nick is doing there. ETB triggers do not happen
And
for lands, for creatures, for other permanents.
Evoke Solitude.
Yep.
Trigger.
Doesn't. It's only my opponents.
Mine trigger twice.
We got a
Sorry,
reader
I'm reading
here.
that part.
Nick's like, what? Why do you get 2 triggers off Solitude?
We're gonna sneak
Spoiler alert,
Rather than the
that
first
is what the card says. And
Oh,
so it
geez.
looks like
That is cool.
Zeke is going to win match number 2. Nick is like, I don't know how I can beat this card. Solitude. And triggering twice
Yeah,
off of the
I was-
Elishnorn.
Had I thought through, maybe I should have tried
Okay,
to
so
draw more cards to
looks
get
like
it,
Zeke's
but
plan worked
like,
very well then to
try to
kind of
wait.
counter the early enabler and then just wipe the board of what Nick had to do with landing Elishnorn. So
Huh.
All right, looks like some Ice Fangs are coming out for Zeke. Doing a slight adjustment in between games 2 and 3. And what are we bringing in? Thinking about Chalice. Nope.
the question for me is, does Nick have anything that can deal with Elishnorn?
I think it was in March, maybe? Didn't quite see.
Yeah, I would love to see. So, Amulet. Do we have any Amulet Titan players in chat? Anybody have the tech for what Titan can do against Elishnorn from the board? You know, usually your piece of removal is Dismember, but of course that is not going to be good enough. I thought that I'd seen some white versions playing some paths in the sideboard.
I mean, Path is kind of old school tech for Titan.
Yeah, haven't seen much of it, and I imagine, you know, Elishnorn is not. You don't necessarily need to be just tailoring your deck around Elish
You
Norn.
get 8 mana, plus
No,
9.
it doesn't.
It is
doesn't
always
double.
nice to have an
Only
out
does
to
one
like a
damage.
card that you can't
Oh,
beat
yeah,
though.
That's the second time it's supposed to-
Yes.
so you
Yeah, I mean, it
get
makes the
land,
game
yeah, you
feel
get
better,
land.
certainly.
So one fetch gives you the damage as well.
Yeah.
I see.
I don't know, I'm not
That'd be
seeing
sweet.
really any great answers. I mean, you may just have to be fast enough to,
That's why if
you know,
do it
run your
all at
opponent
once,
over, but
you only get
that seems pretty rough for Titan.
I think Elish Norn is one of those hilarious cards that I think, like, if you looked at what Modern was like 3 or 4 years ago, it is an unplayable card because it doesn't really do anything when it comes into play, and it costs 5 mana, and Path to Exile exists.
Right. and
But
you'll
just the fact that all of
only 3 of them
the
will do anything,
removal,
but you'll
pretty
get
much
a
in Modern, that will deal with stuff that has high toughness or a high CMC, is all like ETB permanent based. Like Elish Norn just like hoses like so many strategies.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Oh, Beast Within. That's a shout out to another classic modern sideboard card. Wow, it's like taking you back in time to like the old
Yeah,
sideboard hits of
yeah.
Modern.
There was a recent list. A specific Amulet player was playing like 3 Oblivion Stones in the board, which is a very, very interesting way to deal with these kind of like critical mass decks that just put a ton of permanents on the board.
Oh, yeah.
Problematic permanents.
Sure.
Take them out.
And it's finally met its
You can
match.
get attack triggers from your Titan.
Slaughter Pact also. That's a card I haven't seen cast quite a while.
No, and I would think that Slaughter Pack would be a little bit awkward for kind of the modern Amulet Titan list to cast without access to Gemstone Mine.
Alright, down to 5.
Yeah, mistaken.
Zoos and an assortment of random utility lands isn't gonna cut it.
So it looks like Nick is mulling. The Titan deck does mull very well, so it's not usually a huge deal to go to 6. Once you get below 5, it starts to feel a little bit sketch, but I've never really minded going to 6 on that deck.
I gotta do my best Tron impression.
Karoo lands are a really nice way to recover from a mulligan.
6
No one ever plays Tron anymore.
It's true.
It is always a bit more rough to when you're, in game 3 and you're on the play, and then you mulligan to 5. It feels worse than being on the draw because you're just, your opponent has 3 more cards than you do.
That's true. Yeah, Emrakul is an interesting one. I think, like the extra turn would help, but of course, like, you're still gonna get blown out by the Solitude even if you have Emrakul. So it's like kind of an out, but I'm not sure how into bringing it in I would be on the Titan side.
I would bring in Emrakul just against control in general, depending on which Emrakul we're talking about.
We're talking the Aeon Storm.
Ah.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you with the Emrakul that Mind Slavers your opponent.
Oh, okay, second Amulet.
Yeah.
So is maybe that potentially fast start?
Yeah.
Try it 4, bounce this.
Okay.
Okay, we can go Grazer. Oh no, this is just Map. So Map's probably got to go get.
Green and 1 blue left.
Map's got to go
I
get
thought that was a red.
potentially T West
So I now will have 1 green left.
if Nick does not have the threat in hand.
Oh boy. It's sneaky. You can't see it.
I feel like. Interesting. We did, I think, just pass by a copy of Teleria West. Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So yes, map for T West. Next turn with the Grazer, we can generate. Is it 8 mana total? So we still.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go Grazer now,
Oh, yeah.
which.
Yeah, because mute and bounces back my hand.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that's
And
all.
you have.
Okay.
So your last card.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So this is, I mean, Nick still has to hit something off the top here. This is not good enough on its own.
I told you, my best Tron impression. This is not a bad start for.
Needs a land. Or needs something, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that in this case, yeah, playing the Grazer now. Just trying to think if it might have been better to save the Grazer kind of as like a ritual effect for later.
I guess Dryad or Azusa is probably what you want. Azusa being the better one in this specific situation. But, you know, not bad for mulligan to 5 there.
Yeah, certain. I mean, it'll depend, right? This is either going to explode and Nick will be able to play an uncounterable Titan, or we're going to draw dead. Explore is also a great pickup. Explore would let us get there too if Nick is playing that card. Looks like
Oh,
a
that was a Dryad.
Dryad.
So I think that Dryad is going to take
That's not
one
quite
more
there.
turn.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, that will get us there. Yeah, because we were 1 mana short, and Dryad is net 1 mana. So this is actually perfect. So 1 floating. If Dryad resolves here, then we can generate 6, cast the uncounterable Titan. Wow, this is quite the mold of 5.
There is a Solitude in Zeke's hand. I do not know if there's another white card.
So, I mean, Nick still will be able to generate 6 and play the Titan, regardless of, you know, if I see. So Zeke's taking a look at the Boseiju in hand. Looks like Ren, Counterspell, Solitude. Are we debating the counters? I mean, I would think that we would see the Counterspell here. If Zeke is kind of reading... If Zeke is reading what Nick can do here, and he should be able to because, I mean, Nick's hand is basically face up at this point. Okay, interesting. So we're going to go ahead and take out the Amulet, which will keep Nick from being able to play the Titan this turn.
It's such an interesting Boseiju target too, right? Because you could have gotten the Dryad.
So, no, well, here's the problem with going after the Dryad. If you go, you can't hit the Dryad until after you give priority back to Nick.
Right.
So Nick can play the bounce land to get Titan mana, and then you can hit the Dryad. But you're not preventing the additional land drop. So that's why you have to fire this off before the Dryad resolves.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess sometimes this can just cheese you. Like, I mean, these are awful. They don't do anything. Yeah. And Fury doesn't seem particularly good.
Is there a reason why you do that and you don't counter the Dryad?
But the game, it
Um,
ends up mattering, but the more recent Rhinos decks are on 3.
I think I probably would have been into it. Into countering the Dryad. We didn't hear what Nick's initial Cavern name was. It's possible that Cavern did name Dryad.
Okay.
So let's say you can...
I think even if you kill Dryad with the untap trigger in response with 2 amulets out, you're going to generate 4 mana off your Karoo land, and then you are going to get the land that you get off Boseiju and the Caverns out there, so you'll be able to cast Titan.
Oh, that is interesting. You could target the Karoo land with the untap trigger on the stack. Yes, that is a viable line.
Yeah, there's so many different decision trees in there.
Yeah.
That I think all had some risk reward thing.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, I think getting rid of the Karoo land with the Boseiju also would have been very reasonable here.
Wow.
It's good against, I think, creativity, sort of.
Resolving a Summoner's Pact.
I do love matches like this. So I wonder if Nick goes Tireless Tracker then? We're looking at like Cultivator. Cultivator Colossus is terrible here, so I can't imagine that Cultivator Colossus is the get. Okay, we are going for Titan. This gets really, really dicey because if Nick is not able to actually get enough mana on the board, like if we go for Titan and it doesn't resolve, or something else happens and we can't pay for Pact, it's that's it.
That's one of my favorite ways to win a game of Magic, is when you navigate into your opponent not being able to pay for pact. It just feels kind of glorious.
I think, yeah.
It makes
So-
you feel really big-brained.
John Dune, we should be able to pay for pack next turn with the 2 land drops from the Dryad, but it does still, even if we packed it for tracker, it is still dangerous in that there are things that Nick could do that would prevent that second land drop, but we should be able to pay for pact with the 2 land drops from the Dryad.
I floated of 2, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But I floated the first one. Oh
I
wait.
thought you've only played this one time, right?
Especially because
You
most
didn't have
people
any
are just
mana
playing straight
floating.
teamer now, and it's a blood moon deck. So they got
Okay, we're in a we got to think through this. We're rewinding here.
Yeah, I think
Bounce.
You're 2 lands for the turn where you just
Oh,
get this,
buddy.
and then this thing.
we have made a critical error here.
which is kind of
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, you have
This
you
is
have
this is a common thing that happens when you're playing Titan, where sometimes your brain is moving at an incredibly fast speed, and then the math escapes you.
Yeah. That. Sorry.
there's even like
All right.
So Nick can pay for pact. This is a little bit of a head in hands sort of moment. But Nick is not out of the game. We can pay for pact next turn. Okay, no, we can't pay for pack next turn, and that's game. Hey.
That was sweet.
You know, sometimes you die to the pack. Sometimes you get math and you die to the pack.
I was like, it's
Oh.
fine. Jump before mana.
Oh boy.
We did just say that was like the most glorious way to win a game, and you know it feels
Yeah,
even
yeah.
better when your opponent can't pay for a pack trigger is because you've blown up their lands with an Obsidian Charmal.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was probably what I'm imagining is Nick had the line planned out with the other amulet, and there was probably like a disconnect between like brain and line execution. That just kind of like the line was like with Amulet, it's a sort of deck where you just imagine the line, you're like 20 steps ahead in your brain, and then when you actually execute it, sometimes you can just have like a brain fart as you're executing the line and forget like step 2 of 20 that you thought through.